Ever since the leaks, Mortal Kombat 1 has been in a frenzy on the internet of different opinions, different people fighting about this and that. But I want to talk about the state of the game as a whole. Now, why I like making these videos is because I can remember the game for what it was at the time and not the lies that people are going to come up with in the future. Like MK11. There's this thing now where people are acting like MK11 was a good game, and people do this with every fighter, but MK11 was so bad that I will not let this one slide. People hated MK11, including myself. I hate that game with a fiery, burning passion. Okay? Back then, I had a league going called NCL, where it was a Twitch stream, and a lot of people loved it, including myself, where everyone of every skill level could all come and just fight each other. It was like, you know, combat league, but my own twist on it. I called it Nickopz Championship League. And it was great. I had one tournament with it before. It was basically just an exhibition stream, and it was great. I loved it. And I stopped doing that on Twitch, and I was almost about to hit 10K like years ago. I hated MK11 so much that I stopped my whole stream of NCL, and I let my goal of getting 10K go because I despised MK11. I was like at 9K something, and I was grinding the game, but I hated it so much that I just couldn't continue. No NRS game has ever done me like that. And again, nothing but hate in my heart for that game. I hate it with a passion. So when people hear me defending MK1, they sound so surprised because they just assume that I'm going to hate on it because I hated MK11. But that's not me. I'm always going to keep it real. I'm going to be fair no matter what. And if I am being biased in the moment, I will let you know. But again, I hated MK11, and a lot of people hated MK11. And if you go back and look at my state of the game videos for that game, you will see that as well. And my final video on MK11, all people talking about it, all people complaining about it. MK11 was literally MK11 literally had the same problems as MK1, but with worse gameplay. Again, people complain about the same thing they complain about in MK11 in this game, but at least Mortal Kombat 1 has good gameplay, in my opinion. But we're going to talk about that more later. Let's get into the topics. Again, let's talk about the good. And I just mentioned one good, but I want to talk about that good last. I feel like the game, overall, we're going to go in the order of me talking about the good, the bad, and then the future. So right now, let's address the good. And I think I might be able to address what I was going to say later now. The gameplay. I think the gameplay for Mortal Kombat 1 is good. A lot of people in fighting games play their singular fighting game and they do not branch out to others. And I understand if that is your thing. If you just want to play Tekken and you like Tekken and you don't want to touch any other fighting game, that's fine. If you just want to play MK and you don't want to touch any other game, that's fine. Street Fighter, Guilty Gear. If you want to do that, that is your right. But you can't judge fighting games as a whole if you do that. And I feel like a lot of people have a problem with the cameo system in the game, when in reality, a lot of Mortal Kombat players just haven't played other fighting games, because the cameo system is really not that bad. You talk to like a casual player, it's the end of the world, the cameo system. It is not that bad. Like, the variation system was much worse, in my opinion. It was boring. People just picked the best setup or the best variation anyway, and it was that. Again, you can make the same argument that, okay, Nick, well, some people just pick the same cameo for their character. Okay, that's different from it being a preset variation that no one is going to use at all. I don't think it's a comparison. Why make a variation system when people are just going to play the best anyway? And the variations weren't diverse enough to matter. Again, let's look at Scorpion. Scorpion, you put Pharaoh and Scorpion, Scorpion's a completely different character. If you put Kung Lao on Scorpion, again, they don't compare. They do two different things. And with the variation system, most of the characters did not do enough different to justify there even being a variation system. So that's the first thing about Mortal Kombat 1 that I think is good. The gameplay. I just think it's good. I don't think it's bad at all. I don't hate the cameos. Do I think they did a good job with the cameo system? No. I feel like they could have done much better and made much better cameos, and they should have dropped more cameos with the new combat pack. But again, do I think it's bad just because there's a cameo system alone? Absolutely not. A lot of people just don't want to get used to it, and that's okay. But to say it's bad, the game's bad because you don't like cameos is ridiculous. That means you just don't like cameos. So let's talk about, that's number one. I think that's good. Let's talk about two, the game changes, the updates, the patches. Now this one I'm in the middle about. And why I'm in the middle about it is because before the leaks, if you would have asked me, do I think the game is progressing in a good direction? I would have told you absolutely. I think Mortal Kombat 1 is evolving very well. See, Mortal Kombat gets judged unfairly compared to other fighting games. People forget that NRS games usually only last 2 years. They usually only have 2 years to get it right. Other fighting games have years upon years upon years of updates and changes before they become good games. And that was going to be put to the test with Mortal Kombat 1. That is why I was very excited about the fact that the game was going to get supported longer, because we were going to get a MK that was going to be supported for a while. So we were going to see, can it live up to the hype that other games live up to long term? And people judge MK unfairly because, again, if you look at a lot of fighters on their first year, a big one being Street Fighter V. Street Fighter V is probably the worst year one fighting game of all. We're going to call them the big four now because of Guilty Gear. Of all the big four fighting games, Street Fighter V probably had the worst first year ever. The story mode was literally pictures, bro. It was pictures. And it ended up becoming a game that people liked later on because of all the changes. I feel like MK was progressing at a good rate if the game was going to be supported for a while. But with the leaks and the game ending at its normal term, y'all hear me? The normal term, that's another thing that is irritating me about the community. They feel like because the game is, apparently it was supposed to get an extra combat pack because Ed Boon said it was going to be supported longer. But if they're canceling it, that doesn't mean that the game is getting lackluster support. It's getting typical support. It's getting 2 years. So that means they're just going to work on another game right away. So it's not what we were promised. So if you are mad about that, I get it. But to act like that is a failure, it's not. It's just the norm. So back to the topic at hand. I feel like with the leaks, if the game is actually only going to get supported for 2 years, that grade of like an A or a B I had for the game in terms of update support goes to a C. Because if y'all are only going to support the game for 2 years, y'all need to dump this content. Y'all need to dump these updates out. Y'all need to make the game the best y'all can make it within those the 2 more years people are going to be playing it now until y'all release the other game. Make sure that y'all are just going ham. And this slow and steady rate is good if y'all are going to support the game for a while. But if that is changed now, NRS, y'all need to change what y'all are doing. But overall, I still think they were going at a good rate. And as long as we get a great patch at the end of this season, again, I still feel like the rate is good. But if the game is only going to get played for 2 more years until the other NRS game comes out, I think they need to really hammer in. But so far, I think the updates and changes have been great. I feel like they don't buff good enough. I think they nerf fine. I feel like the only 2 characters that have been over nerfed are probably, well, three characters. Yeah, three characters. I would say Raiden, Peacemaker, and Homelander. I would say those are only characters that really got over nerfed. But even again, the Raiden nerfs weren't like all that terrible. It's just that Raiden was a character that only worked with specific cameos, and not only did they nerf the cameos, they nerfed him too. He's still a pretty okay character with Sector now, and the other two, and Homelander and Peacemaker, I feel like they got nerfed a lot, like too much. I think they were the game's biggest nerfs, and I just don't agree with the nerfs to either one of them because they killed both of the characters' archetype. But again, overall, with all of the changes, that's only the bad I'm listing. They've done a way more good than bad. From this game's life cycle, y'all only really messing up three characters very badly. That's not bad, considering all the good buffs and nerfs that they have made over time. It's just, it feels like they're kind of scared. You know, they just poke at the characters. They don't really make big changes because they're afraid to mess something up. So that's what I think that has also been good, the balance. I feel like the game's biggest blemish of balance, where it's just been completely bad, is definitely Johnny at his worst. I still think he's the most downplayed character in the game, but Johnny at his worst. Havoc is not cool right now, but I would say he's the only character that's really, really not cool. You could debate Sindel too. And the Peacemaker meta was very terrible, but again, they over nerfed him. And I would say Cyrax wasn't cool too, but again, they over nerfed Cyrax. But overall, I feel like they have been doing a great job at getting the game to a balance level that most people would be satisfied with. Again, there's usually only a couple blemishes on that, like right now being Havoc and Sindel. Besides them two, there ain't really characters that are just making you go, okay, this is just too much. Just them two. So that's another check I'll give them. We're still on the good. I think the balance has been good, and the gameplay overall is good. We're going to get to the bad, but I want to get the good out of the way. The mechanics. I feel like the mechanics of this game are much better than MK11. MK11 had the worst, and I mean the worst, mechanics of any fighting game that I personally ever played. I will never get over Wake Up Roll. I am Wake Up Roll's biggest op, biggest hater. Wake Up Roll was the worst thing ever, and it defeated the purpose of what fighting games are usually based around. And if you don't know these terms, then let me know in the comments, like Oki, a meaty, heck, even it made neutral not matter too. It was just ridiculous. Wake Up Roll ruined the essence of what a fighting game is. Worst fighting game mechanic of all time, easily. And the game just had so many bad mechanics, like Breakaway too, and the crushing blows. They just weren't good. I think MK1 has good mechanics. I can't think of one mechanic in the game that's just, okay, that's bad. Like maybe they should add push block, maybe. But besides that, I don't feel like you can objectively look at any mechanic in Mortal Kombat 1 and go, okay, this is just terrible. I don't think so, personally. And yeah. So that's all the good for Mortal Kombat. I feel like the mechanics are good. The gameplay is good. Overall, I think the gameplay for the game is good, and they progressively got better. That's the props I want to give them. Now, let's get to the bad. I feel like what MK1 did wrong with the state of the game right now, first of all, the DLC. I made a whole video talking about the DLC. I don't know if I'm releasing it before or after this, but I think the DLC, to sum up what I said in that video for the Spark Notes, overpriced, lackluster, did not introduce enough features. The story was bad. No one cares about invasions. They should have added a different mode. Again, The DLC was a joke, not the characters. Again, not the gameplay or anything like that. I feel like all the DLC characters so far are designed very well, like each one of them. But what came with that $50 price point was a joke. And again, they could have done so much more to make up for the lackluster DLC, but they didn't. For the lackluster base game, I mean, they could have did more to make up for the lackluster base game with the DLC, but since they didn't, I think the DLC was a fail. I really do. And a bad story. I think it had a very bad story. And I talked about that all in the video if you want to hear why I think the story's bad and all that stuff. That was just the spark notes. Now, to go on about what I said about that one, bad features. I feel like what is bad about Mortal Kombat 1 that's undeniably bad, that is actually a joke, is the features. The features are a flat out joke. Compared to its respected fighting games, like Guilty Gear. Well, I don't want to say respect. I'm going to call them the Big Four now. Because we got, people try to push MK out of there, but MK, it can be pushed out of there just because the tournament scene is not big. But MK, Street Fighter, Tekken, Guilty Gear. That's the Big Four. The features that Street Fighter and Tekken have, because all the games came out in the same year. Well, within the same year, like year span, not the same year. Because Street Fighter came out in like June, I think, then MK came out in September, October, and Tekken was February, January, one of those. Within a year of them all coming out, if you compare Mortal Kombat's features to Tekken and Street Fighter, it is a joke. It is actually a joke. First of all, no practice mode while looking for a match? Like NRS, come on now, are y'all serious? That is a typical basic feature in fighting games now, for you to be able to freaking search for a match while you're practicing. On top of the customization. Injustice 2, if you are a real NRS player, you know Injustice 2 had the best customization. The customization has went down the drain. It is terrible now. It's like they didn't even try. Again, if you're going to give us bad features, like, or bad modes and everything, like invasion and stuff, at least let us spend some time and work on our character and make our characters look cool, like we could in Injustice 2. You could literally sit there for hours customizing your characters in Injustice 2. And in MK, you just get a palette and another piece. It's just a joke. The features, and again, no rooms. That was MK's thing, where other games have like the little rooms, like the anime style, where you can walk around, which I think is very cool. Some people don't like it, but I think it's cool. And RS has nothing. It's just queue up for match, and you can't even practice while you do it. So on top of that, just Invasions 2 being a bad mode as well. Invasions is the worst. I don't know any person that likes Invasions. They sit here in this combat cast all the time. I think the one that's usually in the middle, I think Derek. I'm not sure his name, but there's Tyler, Stephanie, and I think the middle one's Derek. Derek, he's always hyping up those invasions like people play them. Nobody cares about invasions. Only reason people play them at least a little bit is because they lock stuff in it to try to get you to play it. Invasions suck. People care about invasions less than the freaking birthday shout-outs y'all do for the combat cast. No one cares about these dang invasions. It was a terrible game mode. On top of having a lackluster feature and mode list in the game, you add a mode that replaced the crypt. Like, I had more fun in the crypt. It only took a day to do the crypt. And I don't mean like 24 hours, like 8-9 hours probably for you to get everything out the crypt. I had more fun in the freaking crypt in MK10 and 11 than I have ever had in Invasions. And that's like a one-day thing. They tried to make this like live service type thing with the crypt to keep it going, and it changes, but it sucks. It's boring. Nobody wants that. Again, they need to add cool stuff like you can fight characters with your friends, or like team boss modes where you can queue up with like 5 people and y'all all fight a big Raiden or a big Havoc or something. Stuff like that. Not no freaking invasions. Like, no one cares about these little nodes where you go fight characters. That crap sucks. It's so bad. And it's so irritating listening to them try to hype it up every combat cast. No one cares about them invasions, bruh. Let them go. Let them go. And so that's wrapping up where the good and the bad of the state of the game right now. I feel like the game is in a position. Now we're going to talk about the future. That's what I meant. We're going to be talking about the future because I got the good and the bad out of the way. Let's talk about the future because a lot of people think the game is done and a lot of people think it's over now. They can't come back from it. And I have 2 things to say to that. First of all, MK is never going to die. I know some of you like to push this narrative that it is. I know some of you like to make those clickbait videos, but MK is never going to die. The worst thing that could happen to MK is it sells less than what, 3 million or 2? That could be bad, but still MK is always going to sell regardless. The name is too powerful. The name is too strong. That is why they know they can get away with the crap they've been doing. People will complain about it, but people are still going to buy the next MK. That's not the same for Injustice or their other titles or anything like that. That is why MK is just not going to fail. Even I think Chaos Reigns was a bad DLC, but it still had almost 250,000 people log in to play it. To play just in the league when that DLC was fresh. So to say the game is failing is disingenuous because the name is too big. Just because it's not performing out of the ordinary like MK11 was. And again, that's because MK11 was in COVID era. MK11 was in COVID era because it sold more and it had last gen support. Y'all would be surprised on how many people still play last gen consoles. Like, really. You'd be surprised how many people still on that PS4. And I do think that in the future, looking towards the future, I think they really just need to go hard with supporting this game still. If the game is going to end in, another year's worth of time, that don't mean that they cannot support the game for 2 more years. They can still finish off this year and have balance changes for the next year until the next MK comes out. That's why, people that are acting like everything's just so dead, it's up to them. And that's another problem with them. They don't freaking communicate at all. They have the worst communication of any fighting game company. Like, how is your communication worse than Capcom? Capcom talks to their community like once every 6-7 months. And your communication is worse than them. That's insane to me. But the future could still be good for MK as long as they still support the game with the regular lifespan it has left until the next one comes out. There's no reason that they can't support the game even if they don't make new characters. If they're not making new characters, we can still get patches. Patches can still keep a game alive or bring a game back. Look at Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite right now. That game's getting a whole revival because a mod patch. And again, people were not playing that game. That game was dead in the dirt. And now the game's getting a whole revival because of a singular mod patch. So imagine if NRS kept supporting the game still. Again, support is different. I'm not talking about just characters and cameos. They can make updates and changes that will keep the game fresh for a little bit until the new NRS game comes out if those leaks are true. So, again, I feel like the state of the game overall is in the most questionable spot that it has ever been because we don't know anything for certain. Again, with the leaks and everything, we know that there is discourse and information that is all contradicting what Ed Boon said and the leaker said, all this stuff. Some leaker said this, some leaker said that. Only thing we know for sure right now is they have not communicated it and they announced the Pro Tour. Everything else is still, waiting to be confirmed. But I'm speaking on if all that is confirmed, where do they go from here? And I made all my statements based on that. But again, that's just how I feel about the state of the game. From somebody who actually plays it and is not a clickbait journalist that works for a gaming website that is talking about the game and knows nothing about it. I actually know what I'm talking about when it comes to Mortal Kombat, NRS things related. But that's what I think about the state of the game. Overall, I feel like it's in a questionable spot. I feel like the features compared to its peers are a joke, but I feel like gameplay wise, it still hangs with its peers. I feel like the gameplay is still good, but again, the lack of features is a joke, flat out joke. But again, we don't know what's going to happen. That's just where I think the state of the game is at right now. I addressed everything. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and join the membership if you would like to support the channel more. The highest tier can get me to talk about any topic regarding fighting games once a month. If you join that tier, hope you all enjoy it. Nickopz out.